Hello, my name is Michael Dewan-Herrick. I'm a psychotherapist and a life coach with over 40 years of experience, and I make videos for YouTube. And the topics that I cover are related to personal growth, healing, and development. In this video today, I'm going to talk about the many benefits we can get from learning to play a musical instrument. And I'm going to talk to 4 different kinds of people. So if you're one of these kinds of people, I encourage you to stick around because there's going to be some value in this for you. The first person that I will be talking to is a person who's considered playing a musical instrument but never quite taken the plunge. You're not sure it's going to fit into your life. What I hope to do is give you many reasons why it's a really good idea, why you ought to actually take the plunge. The other kind of person I'll be talking to is the person, maybe you've played an instrument in the past and you gave it up, or you've been playing one but your discipline is falling off and you might let it go. What I want to do is provide you with some reasons that can boost your motivation to stick with it because you are clear about the value that it brings to your life. The third kind of person that I'm going to talk to is a person, maybe you're a musician and you love your instrument and you love playing and you wouldn't dream of stopping. You know that it brings value to your life, but you're not sure you can explain it. And maybe there's somebody in your life who thinks you spend too much time at it. This will give you some reasons. It will give you a way to articulate exactly why it's so wonderful to you. And you may have your own reasons that I'm not going to speak of today, but I think that I'll probably offer some you haven't thought of before. And the fourth kind of person I'm talking to is the person maybe you only vaguely thought about picking up a musical instrument. Mostly you're keen on personal development, and you might be looking for some other tool or some other discipline that can really boost your personal development. I'll be giving you also the same reasons why playing a musical instrument, although you may not have thought about it, can really enhance your personal development. Now, there's a lot of obvious reasons for playing a musical instrument. It's fun, it's enjoyable. You learn some songs you can play for others, they get enjoyment. It's nice, For some, that's enough. What I'm going to talk about in this video goes well beyond that. It's many other benefits that you may have never realized can come from learning to play a musical instrument. My own interest in this topic comes from obviously having been a psychotherapist and a life coach for a long time, but also having played a musical instrument for over 50 years now. I started playing guitar when I was a teenager and really enjoyed composing my own songs. And that's been the most of my life, of playing the guitar and singing and writing songs. When I was 40, I picked up the trumpet and learned and played that for 10 years. I had to drop that because I wasn't in an environment that really was conducive to it. Carried on playing guitar, and about 8 years ago, I decided to learn the piano, and it was a big switch, and I knew that it was going to take a lot of work for me to learn it. So I really focused and I committed to it, and I have consistently over 8 years pretty much maintained a 2-hour-a-day practice on my piano. Because of that commitment and that focus, I began to notice things that I hadn't noticed quite as clearly before. And that's what I want to share with you. I'm going to share some of the things that came out of my research, but the heart of what I want to offer today comes from my own personal experience. These are the benefits that I've gotten from my playing of a musical instrument. But before I get to the heart of what I want to share with you, which is my personal experience of the benefits of learning a musical instrument, I want to share with you what I've discovered in my research into neuroscience and what it has to say about how playing a musical instrument affects the brain. I'll also, before I get into talking my own personal experience, share with you what ChatGPT had to offer me when I asked it the question of how it benefits the brain. or how it benefits personal development. Neuroscience has discovered through magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI scans, that people in the process of playing a musical instrument, their brains light up in many different regions. In fact, they light up in more regions than any other activity that we know of. To play a musical instrument is considered to be a full body workout for the brain. Visual, auditory, and motor cortices all are activated. As well, linguistic and mathematical areas are stimulated, and the volume of the activity in the corpus callosum is increased. And the corpus callosum is the midbrain. It's between the two hemispheres, and it facilitates communication between the hemispheres. With that being done, it enhances our problem-solving abilities, both for intellectual and academic reasons, but also for social problem-solving. People who make music, particularly people who compose music, increase their executive function, and this is our ability to organize and structure a series of tasks to complete. Creating music also enhances memory, both for creating memories, storing them, and retrieving them. It's also shown to be of benefit to people, enhances cognitive processes for people who've suffered a stroke or experiencing dementia or head injuries. It also helps to guard against general aging of the brain. And the reason that this happens is something called neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to form new neural connections and to actually grow. It used to be thought, although it's been long understood that this isn't true, it used to be thought that this only happened in children during the initial development of the brain, but it's now found that neuroplasticity carries on throughout our lives. It may decrease the older we get, but that we always have some degree of neuroplasticity. And that means that what we do with our brain exercises our brain, and our brain can continue to strengthen itself, to learn new things. So that's quite a bit there. I also want to share what ChatGPT told me when I asked how playing a musical instrument can lead to personal development. It said, it allows for expression and communication of emotions in a nonverbal way. It reduces stress and can distract us from daily worries. It increases self-awareness because it requires close attention to one's thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations, and enhances our awareness of ourselves. Cognitive control, concentration, managing multiple tasks simultaneously. That's something I'm going to talk about more later. And I wrote about this and thought about this before ChatGPT told me about it. Social support when done in a band or musical group. And the last point that ChatGPT offered to me was mood enhancement. It can stimulate the release of endorphins and dopamine associated with positive emotions, and can boost your mood and alleviate symptoms of anxiety and depression. So that's what ChatGPT says. There's neuroscience that makes a good argument for it, but now what I want to do is talk about what I've mostly contemplated in my own experience with learning a musical instrument, the ways it's affected me, and I believe will have this kind of effect on everybody. I know we're all different. People respond to things differently, but my hunch is that the things that I get from it are universally available. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is attention or concentration. Learning a musical instrument requires an intense level of focus. External distractions, noises, or other things going on in our senses in the environment, we disregard so we can focus on what we're doing. But also there's internal stimuli. There's thoughts and distractions in our bodies that we need to set aside while we focus on the task at hand. Additionally, to learn a musical instrument isn't to just pay attention to one thing. There are multiple things to pay attention to. There's reading the notes on the page. There's attending to finger placement. There might be tending to the foot pedal if you're playing a piano. there's rhythm, there's a lot of multiple things to pay attention to, and your attention is going back and forth with all of these things. Practicing that increases our ability to do that in our day-to-day life. I think it's probably pretty obvious, and I don't need to say a lot about it, how our ability to pay attention, particularly to multiple things, if we get better at that and we can apply that in our lives, it will be of benefit there too. Next thing to talk about is listening. It's key to be developing it all as a musician. It's not just about hitting notes. It's about hearing what's happening and the subtlety and the variety of ways that the sound is coming across. There's the volume, there's the tone, whether it conveys a sense of energy, to what emotion does the sound associate or evoke. Is it consonant? Is it dissonant? There's all kinds of subtle dynamics in the sound. And if we tune ourselves into those while we play music, it can sensitize our ability to hear that in our everyday life, in particular in human speech. We begin to tune into the subtle differences in the way people talk, and perhaps get a little bit better at reading nonverbal cues through voice tone. As well, we can listen to our own voice. We can notice whether we are conveying a sound that expresses the feeling that we're having. Or if we notice that we're not, that it's not coming through in our voice, what are we feeling? Are we feeling anything about what we're saying? It's a good little exercise to practice that in music, and then notice how you talk in everyday life and whether there's any musicality to your voice. I've noticed over a long period of time, most of the time, if somebody's an accomplished musician, listen to how they talk. They don't talk in a flat way. There's a kind of a music to their voice because it's in them. They know that sound carries feeling, it carries energy, it carries all kinds of information, and it can become a part of how we read people's voices and how we use our own voice. So if we listen to the sound closely, we hear qualities in it, including emotional qualities. But playing a musical instrument means first we have to actually be able to feel things. We have to get into the zone of the song or of the piece of music we're playing and actually feel what it's expressing. Whether it's sadness or happiness or exuberance or anger or tranquility, we have to be in that feeling. And if you're somebody who, perhaps a lot of people say, I'm not in touch with my feelings as much as I would like to be, music is a way to practice getting in touch with those feelings. It's also a way to regulate emotions in the sense that a piece of music or a song has a structure to it. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It may have a key or transpose to different keys. And as that expression is coming out, it's being held, it's being contained. It's not all over the place. So can be the experience of being both immersed in it, so you're fully feeling it, but you're also in mastery of it. You're also observing it at the same time. And this, I think, turns out to be a really good way to practice having some mastery of our own day-to-day emotions, and not only activating them and feeling them, but having a sense of containment, even beauty to our emotions. One of the things that I've noticed again and again over time is that in my effort to hit the right note, form the right chord precisely, sometimes I'm not attending enough to the feeling in it. And a piece of music, the musician could hit every note exactly right, but not sound musical, not convey the emotion. And this got me to reflecting on how I am in my day-to-day life. As I mentioned before, We can hit the right notes in terms of saying the right words, but what's our tone? What's our feeling that we're having when we're saying it? What's the feeling that we mean to convey to another? It's not enough in music, or I think in everyday conversation, to simply hit the right notes. And this is something I reflected on as well as a therapist. I can learn how to say the words that need to be said, but am I embodying them? Am I present with a feeling tone that goes with those words? So practicing a musical instrument can help hone that ability. Okay, the next benefit that I'd like to talk about: how learning a musical instrument can strengthen something in your life, and that is commitment. To learn a musical instrument requires commitment. It's a discipline. If you're going to really learn it, you need to practice regularly. Every day, if you can, set aside a time to prioritize your life in a way that makes a space for it, and consistently do it. That's what it takes. And learning to do it with a musical instrument can give you the experience of that, and that can be applied other ways in your life. Another way I want to talk about commitment, though, is the micro level of commitment, and that is your commitment to what you're playing, to each note, each sound that you make. It may be an F sharp or a B flat, whatever the note is, whatever the chord is. Are you fully committed to it? Are you playing it wholeheartedly, or are you hesitant? Have you completely, fully committed to that sound? Each moment, there's the attitude and the feeling that this is what I mean to do. It may be somebody else's note. Maybe you feel you stole it. Maybe you feel you're an imposter. But to commit to it means to not dwelling on that, and to own it yourself, and to give full expression to whatever that expression is to be, whether it's to be loud and in your face, or whether it's to be soft and subtle. But it's a complete commitment, each moment, to each thing that happens in your musical playing. This is sometimes why music teachers will say slow down. They want you to not only not ingrain mistakes, but to savor each sound that you make, to really hear it. And in terms of our day-to-day life, how committed are we to what we do in our day-to-day life? How hesitant or apologetic or half-hearted are we about what we do or what we say? Can we make a practice of meaning what we say, standing by it, standing by our actions, being fully embodied in our actions, making commitment to live actually each moment of our lives as if it's the next note in a piano sonata. It's important. It may just be one thing, but that one thing right then, the quality of it is important, and it's part of the overall tapestry, either of the music or of our lives. So, commitment. Learning a musical instrument is a way to practice commitment, not only in the bigger sense, but in the smaller sense of moment to moment. Well, another thing that we can learn through practicing a musical instrument is something that is important for our everyday life, and I would call that frustration tolerance. It's hard to learn a musical instrument. It's hard work. We make a lot of mistakes. It takes time to master things. There's a lot of repetition. Sometimes we have to work really hard at something over a longer period of time. If we don't have any tolerance for frustration, we'll give up. But if we don't give up, if we persevere, we'll master it. And this is quite an amazing experience. It's something that will translate into the rest of our lives, that we don't give up. We persevere. For a while, I made a sign and put it over my piano, and it just had 2 words on it, and it was embrace frustration. So in a sense, I'm saying not just to tolerate it. We don't just tolerate frustration at best. What we can do is embrace it, because when we're experiencing frustration, it means we've come up against a limit. right? We've come up to the threshold of what we can do, and we're at the edge of what we can't do. Embrace that, because if we embrace it, and we embrace it with discipline and perseverance, we move beyond it. We master something that we hadn't mastered before. And this is a tremendously rewarding experience in anything. In particular in music, it's very rewarding. And it's something that we can take into the rest of our lives. Okay, the next thing. Decision making. It's related to some other things, but I want to address it separately. I heard Chick Corea once say about his playing that it boiled down to making decisions, moment to moment, particularly for improvisers, jazz improvisers, for instance. We don't know what to play. There's a structure, there's a chord progression, there may be a theme, but each musician gets to decide which notes to play out of a grand array of possibilities, maybe infinitely. And each moment that goes by, another decision has to be made. And learning how to do this, I think, strengthens our ability to make decisions generally. In music, a bad decision, hitting a wrong note, we want to avoid that, of course, but it happens. And I heard a great story from Herbie Hancock, who was talking about playing with Miles Davis, and at some point he hit the wrong chord and he was horrified, and Davis looked over at him sideways and then played something, and it tied in the mistake. It made it as though the mistake was supposed to be part of the music. And this was a big learning moment for Herbie Hancock. I think that basic idea is something we can incorporate into our lives as well. That even when we make mistakes, what matters is what we do next. It may be that we learn how to correct it, but it may be that the mistake turns out to offer us something of value we didn't see before. One of the things, if not the primary thing, that makes it difficult for us to make decisions is our fear of making a mistake. If we get used to making mistakes and pushing through it by playing music where there's not a lot at stake, we can get better at it in our lives. I love a quote from a famous old jazz saxophonist named Coleman Hawkins, who said, "If you're not making mistakes, you're not really trying." Okay, another benefit, and this is one that I haven't really found in my research that anybody talked much about. But I think that learning a musical instrument is a way to strengthen our ability to recognize and integrate polarities, or what I would call dialectics. They're opposing forces or qualities or ideas. I think music is both symbolic and metaphoric in its way of handling these opposites, but it's also a literal expression of them through its sound. For instance, a primary dialectic in music that I think guides all composition and all of our enjoyment of music is the tension between tension and release. Music works at building tension. It builds expectation and anticipation, and then it resolves it, and then it meets that expectation. Somehow there's a sense of build-up, and then, yes, we come back to the tonic note, or we resolve the chord into the next chord. Another thing that it does, and it's probably related to tension release, is that it gives us the familiar and the expected, and then the novel, the unexpected. So if we don't hear things that we kind of expect to hear, that we've heard before in a sense, if it doesn't follow certain kinds of memories that we expect, we're confused. We don't know how to make any sense of it. It's chaos. But if it doesn't introduce anything new, if it doesn't take us outside of the familiar, it becomes boring and we lose interest. So music also, along with balancing tension and release, balances familiarity with novelty. It also balances the intellect with feeling. The structure of a piece of music and the amazing complexity of the harmonies can really stimulate our intellect, our mind. But the sensuality of the music is embodied and felt. So it has both things going on simultaneously. It's stimulating our higher cognitive nature, but also our heart and our belly and our feelings. Related to that, it is that it stimulates kind of primal drives through rhythm. It makes us want to move and dance and become embodied. But it also, through melody, the sublime nature of some melodies, it takes us almost out of this world, out of our bodies, into almost a celestial place. And it can do both, and it can bring them together. This is just a few of the dialectics that I think that are at play in music. And when we learn a musical instrument, a lot of this we could just hear if we listen to music, but when you're actually engaged in it and you're making the music yourself, you're handling these dialectics, you're mastering them, you're noticing them, you're embodying them, they're filling your mind. And I think our ability to do that musically, again, is available then for our day-to-day lives. How do we embody these things? How do we bring these opposites together in our day-to-day life? Another thing that the practice of a musical instrument can strengthen in us is our precision. How precise are we? To play well, we have to listen closely. We have to not be sloppy. You know, if you're not in rhythm, it won't sound right. If we hit the wrong note, it won't sound right. I know I said something about making mistakes and the willingness to do that, but there's also this attention to the detail. And that if you listen to a great piece of music, a concert pianist, for instance, it's amazing how precise they are. They don't miss a beat. They don't miss a note. It's very precise. And learning a musical instrument puts that demand on us to be precise every moment. And we could reflect on our day-to-day life. How precise are we in our day-to-day life? Do we say what we mean? Do we do what we say we're going to do? Sometimes there are big consequences for being sloppy in our day-to-day life. If you're sloppy in how you file your taxes, that could have a consequence. But there are other things that we can do in our life and be more precise about. How we cook a meal, how we clean up our house, how we take care of our hygiene, how we keep our belongings. Are we precise? I'm not suggesting that the goal is to become obsessive compulsive and to have to, emulate a German clockmaker. But I do think that some degree of precision is extremely valuable in our day-to-day lives, and practicing it as a musician will attune us to that, and we can begin to notice how imprecise are we in our lives. Is there anything we could tighten up a bit? I'm sure that there are many other ways that learning a musical instrument can bring benefit to our lives, but in service of not going on too long in this video, I will leave it there, but I do want to say a few more things that I think are valuable. There are other ways that we can get some of these benefits, other things that we can do to strengthen our concentration and our decision making. But apparently there aren't many things or any other things that we can do that light up our brain in so full a way as learning a musical instrument. Well, I believe that the benefits begin to accrue naturally without any particular effort in other areas of our life. I think that can be amplified and enhanced if we begin to notice, if we begin to think about it, if we make a deliberate effort to be more precise, for instance, or be more concentrated, or have more feeling, or any number of other things, if we can bring it to our life from our musical instrument practice. In fact, something that I've done is go the other way. Some things that I've struggled with musically, I've thought, how can I live differently? How can I attend to my moment-to-moment experience in my day-to-day life in a way that will strengthen that, so that when I sit down at the piano, it's available? I think it works both ways. You don't have to have grand musical ambitions to be a rock star or a concert pianist in order to take up a musical instrument for good reason. I hope that I've given you some reasons. I hope that if you've thought about having that a part of your life, that you'll go ahead and do it. You'll take that plunge and buy the instrument, bring it home, and set out on that journey. If you have put your instrument away, not gotten it out for a while, I hope that I've given you a reason to get it back out and engage it again, and to discover why you first learned to play it, and re-experience all the values and benefit that it can bring to your life. If you're a happy musician and you don't feel like you're ever going to quit, I hope that I've given you some further ideas about how to get value out of what you're doing, and perhaps offer an explanation to somebody who may think you're spending a little too much time at it. And if you're somebody who's just vaguely thought about a musical instrument, and you're mostly just came to this video for something to do with personal development, I hope I've made a good case for this being a premier discipline. This is not just some extra artsy-fartsy thing that you're going to do. It's a really central discipline to help you in your overall endeavor to develop as a person. Finally, there's one last thing I do want to say. Beyond all of the benefits that I've mentioned and all of the other benefits that I haven't, there's this. If you spend the time to learn a musical instrument, it will increase your appreciation for the music you do listen to. You will hear more in it. And when you struggle with even the simplest things, when you see a master musician, you will have deep appreciation for that. And it'll make this hair stand up on the back of your neck. It'll give you goosebumps. Your jaw will drop in awe of what human beings actually are able to do with music. I don't think I would get as much, appreciate as much, or be as in awe of music myself if I hadn't struggled all my life, really, to develop to some degree what I can only hope for when I see and hear in others. So there's that too. Well, that's it for now. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. Leave me a comment, share it with a friend, and until next time, happy practice, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.